In this video, I'm going to show you how to make this Harry Potter magic clash effect. So first, you need to film your footage. Shout out to my sister for helping me film this. I'll have a link to her channel right here. So I wanted to use some practical lighting to make it look like the magic is casting light on us, but I only have one light. So to get around that, I put the camera on a tripod and filmed each of us separately. Now at this point I did make a mistake. I should have also filmed a clean plate with nothing else in the frame, but I forgot to. So I went through the footage and found this frame where it was mostly empty, but you could still see the light on the ground. So learn from my mistakes, just film a clean plate. So in Fusion, I've got my 2 takes and my clean plate here. So I can merge the 2 takes on top of each other and merge that over the clean plate. Then I can add a rectangle mask to my first plate, drag that over, and then bring out the soft edge a bunch, and then do the same with the other plate. So now we have both of us on screen being lit by different lights. Now if you've ever done a cloning effect before, this is the same technique, just another use for it. This is just another way you can use VFX to get the most out of what you have. So the beams themselves I got from productioncrate.com. They have tons of really cool spell assets, and most of them are free, which is always nice. They aren't sponsoring this, I just really like them. So I can drag in my first spell asset, and merge that over, then set the apply mode to screen. Now this clip starts going from the first frame, but I want it to start when she kind of thrusts her wand out, somewhere around frame 20. So in the media in, I can go to this global in and out and just drag it until this first frame is on 20, but it's only letting us go to 16. Since we're 4 frames away from 20, I can hit -4 on this last one, and then drag that up. Now it starts at frame 20. Now we need to get it to match the movement of her wand, and you could do this with a transform, but the problem with that is that the spells won't line up. We need a way to control each end separately, and after playing around, I found a way to do this using the grid warp tool. So I can add the grid warp tool, then I can change the X grid size to 3 and the Y grid size to 2. Now you might notice that since we're in the source mode, if we try moving around these points, it's not actually warping the image. What this mode lets us do is choose which points we want to be able to warp. So I can bring up the size until these 2 points line up with the ends of the spell. And when you're lining up the points, make sure you do this on a frame where the spell is fully extended. Once they're lined up, I can go back to destination, but now it's shrunk the spell and we still have all these dots. So to fix that, I can click this copy source to destination, and now we have our 2 points, but now, if I move them around, I can control each point separately. Now to make this easier to animate, I can change the magnet type to selected, select both of these points, and hit Shift P. That publishes the points to these point controls right here, so we can control each of them separately using these. Now I can move this end to the tip of the wand, and the other end to somewhere in the middle. Now you might notice that our spell is looking a little bit warped, so to fix that, after the media in but before the grid warp, I can add a transform tool, uncheck use size and aspect, and bring down the Y size until it looks good. Now back in our grid warp, I'm going to put a keyframe on the point that's on the wand, and just go through and animate that in to stick to the end of the wand. You could try to track the tip of the wand, but honestly, for a shot like this, you're probably not going to get a usable track, so it's better to just go ahead and animate it by hand. I would recommend animating every other frame just to make it go faster. Since this is for a tutorial, I'm just going to go every 5 or 10 frames, just animating it really roughly. So now I have this end very roughly sticking to the end of the wand, but the end in the middle is just kind of staying there static. So I want to add a little bit of movement to that, and a really easy way to do that is to right click on this, go to Modify with Perturb. Now by default that's going to be way too strong, so I can go to Modifiers, bring down the strength to something really small like 0.1, and since I want this to be mostly going left and right instead of up and down, I'm going to bring down the Y scale to I think 0.5. Now it looks like it's moving back and forth depending on who's winning the fight. Now to make it more realistic, in the settings tab I can check motion blur and bring up the quality a little bit. Now to add a bit more oomph to it, I can add a soft glow and bring up the glow size a little bit. Then the color scale, maybe bring up the red and bring down the green and blue. Then copy that, paste it down there, and bring the glow size up to 100. That just adds a little bit more oomph to it, makes it a little bit brighter. Now I can bring down my other spell asset, merge this over, set to screen. Now since I want this one to be facing the other way, I can add a transform and just click this button to make it flip the other way. Now from there, the steps are the same as the other one. Now if when you're animating you notice that the grid warp starts adding all these random lines and things, I don't know why this is, it's just something that happens. If it gets to the point where it's getting in the way of you animating, you can open up the other window, I can close the media pool, bring the merge there, then right click on that window, go to options, and uncheck choose controls. So now I can zoom in on this one, so I can see the controls on this one and see what it's doing on this page. It just makes it a little bit easier to see if it's getting overwhelming in this one. Once you're at the point where you're positioning the middle end, you can right click on that point, and instead of going to modify, you can go to connect to perturb one value. Now it'll always have the same values that perturb there, and the ends will meet. And then again, add a soft glow, bring up the size, this time the color scale, bring up the green, bring down the red, and copy that, paste that, bring scale up. Now we need to sell the power of this clash with something really bright where they meet. What I did is I used the Scarlet Witch effect I made all the way back in my first tutorial and used that for the clash. You can download that asset from the description of this video. So I can drag that in and merge that over, set the apply mode to screen, then I'll add a transform node, and in the center, again, connect that to the perturb one value, and may bring down the size a little bit. I want it to be more golden, so I can add a color corrector, bring up the hue until it's a nice gold color, and may bring up the gain a little bit, and bring down the saturation a tad. Then I'll do the same soft glow trick. I'll add a soft glow, bring up the size, copy and paste that one with an even bigger size. Then I'll find the frame where the spells clash, think that's around frame 30, then I'll set a keyframe on the blend, then I'll go back one frame and bring that to 0. So the spells are traveling to each other and then they kind of burst out with this big thing of light. Now to add another layer of impact to this, I'm going to add some sparks. So to do that, I'm going to bring down a P emitter and a P render, bring that to the screen. I'm going to take this P render and change the output mode to 2D. Then in the emitter, I'm going to go into the region, bring that down all the way, so it's just coming from this one point here. Then in the controls, I'll set the velocity to 0.1 and do the same for the velocity variance. Then in the angle variance, I'll set that to 360 and do the same in the angle Z variance. So now the particles are shooting out. So to make the particles move down, I can add a P directional force. Now it's kind of hard to see, so in the P emitter, under the style, I'll change the style to line. Then in the size controls, I'll bring up the size to 0.75 and bring up the size variance a little bit and bring the size to velocity to 0.1. And I'll bring down the fade a little bit. Then in the controls tab, I'll go into rotation, then change the rotation mode to rotation relative to motion. So to make it even more random and chaotic, I'll bring down the number to 0 and bring the number variance to 50. Now I want this to start when the spells clash, so I'll go to frame 30, set a keyframe on the number variance, go back one frame, and set that to 0. So now they kind of burst on at the right frame. Now I don't want these sparks to be reaching the end of the screen, so I can bring down the lifespan to 10, and bring up the lifespan variance to also 10, I think. Then in the style, I can go into the fade controls, and just bring in this out slider a little bit, so they fade out throughout the shot. Now I will merge that over our footage, again set that to screen. Now to get in the right position, I can actually copy this transform from our clash thing right here, paste that here, I can bring the size back up to full. Then I can add a color corrector, and I'll just give it a kind of gold color, and bring up the gain a little bit. Then I will add another soft glow, and may bring down the glow size on that a little bit. Now if you want to make more than just beams, then check out this video here where I show you how to make spells and blocks from Harry Potter.